Welcome back to another episode of A Measure of Passion. This is Joji, and I'm with a friend of mine. I consider her my colleague as well, Lisa Sparagna. She is a yoga instructor, also teaches meditation and mindfulness. And I just want to give you a little bit about her background before we talk to her directly. One of the stated goals of her passion with these areas is really to help women and others find their inner wisdom. And a little bit of her journey, because it's pretty extensive. I want to talk about how much education and training she's had in these areas. It's very impressive. Lisa started her journey with yoga in 2005. She completed 200 hours and then completed another 500 hours for the advanced training program. Soon after that, she completed an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction training program. And then in 2021, she completed Jack Cornfield and Tara Brock's 2-year certified mindfulness meditation teacher program and completed that, as I said, in 2021. In addition to all of this training, she also has a master's in fine arts from the the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So please help me welcome Lisa to the podcast. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Joji. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you again.
Oh, no problem. No
Sure.
problem. I am fascinated by individuals who really are passionate about something and that it starts to take over little bits of their life. And so you went from yoga to meditation to mindfulness. One of the questions I had was, how were you introduced to these three areas? And did it progressively, organically grow from one to the other to the third? Or is that the order in which most people do these three areas of training?
Yeah, so my training or my interest started way back, I would say when I was in college. My mother happened to have a book on the shelf called Yoga for Americans, I think it was. Brought it up to school with me, opened it up here and there, and was just trying out some yoga poses, even did a little meditation. And then probably fast forward to, I don't know, maybe in my 30s, did a little bit more yoga that was, again, not anything consistently. And then, so I always had a little bit of an interest and curiosity around it. And then when my kids got a little bit older, I was able to attend some yoga classes. And I just found that I really loved it. It felt right to me. It combined my mind, my body, my spirit. It wasn't just an exercise program. And then I went on a yoga retreat with my teacher. And then when I came back from that retreat, I had said to her, I really would like to deepen my practice. And she said to me, you need to go to the school in Santa Barbara called White Lotus and do your teacher training. And I was like, wait, what? Because I had 3 kids at home. My husband traveled a lot. I was like looking around like, are you talking to me? But my husband was very encouraging. We worked it out. I did go for my training. I had no intention of teaching, but in order to finish my certification, I had to come back and take some more anatomy classes, and before I knew it, I had classes going on. So, I fell into that. That's how I fell into the yoga. And there's always some meditation that goes along with yoga and the training. And I started, and I was doing a little bit of meditation on my own. It really wasn't until I had a family, my family of origin, a situation that was very difficult that almost, I knew I was heading downward into almost a depression. And so I started doing a little bit of meditation wherever I could find it. This was back before you had apps or even computers, the computer programs didn't have meditations on them. And so kind of, just started doing more meditation. And I found that it really helped me. And so that's how and I just kept doing it until, along with the yoga and teaching. And then in 2016, I decided to get certified and start teaching out in the world. I wanted to bring my work, what I learned, what helped me out into the world.
Yeah. So I always ask this question in the sense of there's lots of ways that you could help women unearth their wisdom.
Mhm.
And I'm focusing on women. I'm sorry. I mean anybody you work with. So I apologize for,
That's okay.
narrowing the field here. But I'm wondering, why start with yoga? Why not become a therapist? Why not, you have a fine arts degree. Why not create beautiful um, images that help people provoke thoughts about themselves? Why not become an author? And maybe you do all those things, but I'm just wondering, how was yoga the natural kind of fit for you?
Well, because I was immersed in it. I was doing it 3 or 4 times a day. I could see the benefits of it. Um, it just helped me with clarity of mind, with flexibility in my body. And, as far as my artwork, I was doing my artwork on and off at the time and, but not creating classes, mostly for myself or even some small shows I did. And then I found like that with the yoga, it just made sense because it was already part of my life. And then when I got a little bit older and started doing more meditation training, I sort of wished I had the therapy. I mean, yeah, wished I had that hat I could wear as a therapist because I thought I could do so much more. But I also felt like I was looking at that as if from a place of not knowing enough, myself. I was like thinking, well, you don't know enough. You should be a therapist. And the more I talked to therapists that were in these programs with me, because a lot of therapists do the MMTC training, they said that they use the meditation in their therapy, but they don't necessarily bring their therapy hat into their meditation circles or into their private classes. So, the idea was you don't need to be a therapist. And some of my teachers, some of my best teachers are not therapists. And I thought, okay, because I was really going into that place of wanting to be a therapist out of a lack of something, not necessarily I was passionate about being a therapist. I just knew the yoga and meditation I was passionate about. And I wanted to have enough training and that sort to be enough to help people.
And I can totally see that. I mean, in my past life, I was a therapist. I do yoga, meditation, and mindfulness, um, and I can see the overlap and the desire to do both. But I almost feel like they should be kept separate because I do think that the yoga, mindfulness, and meditation is a personal journey.
Mhm.
Whereas I think as a therapist, you're a facilitator and you help people get there.
Mhm.
Whereas you do that almost silently with your trainings and allowed the individual to get to that learning on their own. So I do understand the temptation of how it could be made even more enhanced with it. But at the same time, I do think that there might be ways that that could create some other struggles. But you do create a form of healing. There's no doubt about that. And I forgot to mention in your bio, you do retreats and
Mhm.
classes and women's circles. And I've actually been a participant in one of your programs, which is why I thought of you for this podcast, because I really do feel your joy in bringing people together and helping them do this kind of work. How have you seen the healing occur to people when you've worked with them? I know you take private patients as well. Do those tend to be long relationships or are they time
Mm.
sensitive or how has that evolved for you?
Well, as far as my privates, they do vary. Some some people I've worked with for many years, and then some, we work for 6 or 8 months, and some are just yoga, some are yoga and meditation, some are just meditation. To answer that question, and as far as the healing, I'm sorry, were you asking me how does the healing occur? Yeah.
Yes, and how
Yeah.
does the healing occur that you've seen as a teacher?
hmm Yeah, and so it's interesting because some of even my group classes I've had, um, I just sometimes I just never know. Like, is this working for them? Certainly on a private level, I have a lot more insight into that. And sometimes I'll think, oh, that didn't go well, or I don't know if people were really resonating. And I will get people coming up after class or even a week or month later and say, oh, I'm still using, what you taught me about gratitude, or I'm still using, something else around mindfulness. And I'll be shocked. And so um, I, I've learned to let the process take its course, not be so worried about like, okay, did this work for you? Does not work for you? I didn't do this right. Did I do this right? And then the private classes, I can kind of get a feel for how people are doing. A lot of times people will, at the end of class, will just say they just feel so much better. And sometimes it takes more time. Like it's like, it can be really, because meditation isn't always about like, oh, I'm going to feel calm and good. I mean, we go into stuff that's deep and heavy and try to work through those blockages or work with them. And so, I think as far as the healing occurs in all different ways. And I'm learning to trust that more and more that it does. And so I do get feedback, like I said, sometimes immediately, sometimes months, years later from somebody. And I think it goes with my whole sort of that purpose of planting the seed. I always wanted to get out in the world and plant the seed of meditation, mindfulness, even yoga, and then let people take that wherever they want to. I mean, sometimes people grab onto it and go, yeah, this is for me. And sometimes people don't grab onto it at all. Or maybe later in their life, they're like, oh, yeah, I want to try that again. Now I'm ready for it.
In my experience with these three forms of healing has been very much like that. I have also had a long journey with yoga, and it's only been in the last probably 8 years I've become consistent with it. And then, going back to my question about how they might be building upon each other, then I became interested in meditation. Had some great experiences with meditation. And then recently, mindfulness has just become such a part of mainstream society in terms of the benefits of that. I do feel like they do build on upon each other. And I do believe that mindfulness is the most challenging of the three
Mm.
because it does really require you to stay present. And I really like the way that you put it on your website. And I do want to mention your website too, and that is www.lisasparagna.com. And on that website, you talked about how yoga helps you stay flexible, meditation helps you stay silent, and the mindfulness really allows you to stay present.
Mhm.
And I think that those three words match very well in terms of what the purpose is for each of those. And so tying back to that, how has your passion changed over time? You've been doing this now for almost 20 years. And what was your passion like when you first started, and where is it now, 20
Mm.
years later, as you look in the rearview mirror?
Mhm. Yeah, I think when I first started, I was I was a little too attached to the outcome. I think I spoke a little bit about that just before, in that, I wanted to help people. Like I wanted to help them right away. Like if someone came to my yoga class and their back was bothering them, and I'd want to know after class if it was better. And then if it wasn't, I was like, okay, I was looking for um, some other things to do with them. I was sending them things, here, try this. So I think it's evolved in the fact that obviously the more experience I got, the more I could rest into what I was doing. And so I think that's been a big help. And trusting that they're gonna they're gonna take away with them whatever they need. They might not take away everything, and none of us ever take away everything, right? But what resonates for us is what shows up. And so I'm trusting that whole process a lot more. And the same with meditation and mindfulness. I think as far as how it's evolved is just that I can offer it in a way that's very applicable for mindfulness, very everyday tools, tips. Same with the meditation. I'm really big about. I don't tell my students, you got to do this 30 minutes every day. It's like, how can we make this work in your life? And so I think it's involved in that way, is that I'm able to give people more ways to incorporate these modules, these practices into their life.
Well, I think one of the things that you've shared with me or showed me right now is the fact that I think the training of therapy and the training of yoga and what you're going through, it's a parallel process. I think all of us who want to help people want to see the change and be part of that change. And so I think even early in therapy, one of the things that we all struggle with is to be able to get some concrete proof of what change we've created for that person.
Mm.
And yet we all end up at the same spot you did, which is that you will never necessarily know the full impact of what you brought to this person's life,
Mhm.
and that you have to trust that. they will get to it, and they may not articulate what it is that they have learned or what you've done with, but you have to trust the process. And it's also not, it also reveals a little bit of our need to control the process or our need to feel valued
Mm.
in our process. And so I think letting that go, it sort of reminds me of mindfulness and being present and not worrying about the future and
Mhm.
the outcome of that work. And so it does tie back, but it's a very parallel process. And so I find that really, really interesting. Um, you had started talking to me a little bit about before we started recording about how all these different parts of your life interact. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. And so, how do you see? um, you were talking about your purpose and how it's not limited to just being a teacher and being a, having students. Where does this spill over in other parts of your life?
Well, certainly, my meditation, my mindfulness spills over. My just the fact that I'm more aware, I'm more present. That spills over in so much of what I do. It spills over into conversations I have with family, with friends. I find myself when I'm doing things that I love, like we've talked about yoga, meditation, mindfulness, but I'm also passionate about gardening and cooking. And so I'm very present and mindful when I'm doing those things. And I really take in and soak up how wonderful it feels to be able to do those things. And so um, the idea that whatever I'm doing in my life, especially well for myself and for others, that this passion of being present, being aware, being mindful is always there front and center, or as much as I can have it be there front and center for myself and for others.
And I know that after attending one of your retreats, during the lunch break, you had brought all this wonderful food, but
Mhm.
a lot of it, all of it, I think, was actually very what we consider clean eating. And so, can you talk about that and how you feel that that interacts with yoga as well and the type of nutritional decisions you make about what you eat? I don't know. I'm sure it's a common idea that maybe, all people who do yoga meditation might be vegetarians or vegans or, try to avoid this and what, when you think about healing your body, not only through movement, but also through food, how does that impact your eating habits at home with your family?
Well, for sure, I want to, take care of my body. They talk about your body being your temple, that type of thing. And so, and also I love eating seasonally. I love growing food and, all the nutrients that comes out of picking food right from your garden and being able to eat it within, 24 hours. And so I think all of that is important. And, with yoga, we're taking care of our body. With meditation and mindfulness, we're taking care of our mind. And so the more foods that you can put in that are healthy, clean, the more I think gives us more clarity and more energy in our bodies. I know for myself, I try not to eat wheat or any dairy. I eat I'm not a vegetarian, but I eat very little meat. And I do so much better when those things are out of my diet. When I put them in here and there, I literally get brain fog from some of them. So, and I think sometimes we don't even realize how much we've filled in, our body is sort of backed up with these things until we eliminate them. I know for years, you know, I I loved eating dairy, and it was a fast and easy way to eat when I was raising my kids, like, I'll just take a piece of cheese and run out the door. I stopped eating
Right.
cheese, and all of a sudden, I can breathe normally through my nose, something as simple as that. So it's just so important if we pay attention to our bodies. It makes so much sense that we pay attention for our food, because it's really feeding and nurturing and nourishing our bodies. And so, I don't, um, teach cooking classes, and I don't tell people, well, you should do this or that in your foods as far as your foods go, but I certainly practice it. Or if somebody asks me about it, I'm happy to share, because I think foods are such an important part. And it's important. I think people don't always know how good they're going to feel until they make some changes. And sometimes they can just, we always start with baby steps, right? I mean, that's what I encourage. And I started with, okay, I'll give up dairy to start. And then I gave up wheat, it just kind of gradually. And now I just prefer to eat those foods and to stay away from sugar and the white, all the white foods are not great. The sugar, the flours. And I know this weekend, I made pies when my kids came in from out of town and we had people here. I mean, I made traditional pies, and after eating them a couple days in a row, I had a slice. I ended up with a migraine, and I'm like, okay, it's the sugar. So it relates, and we do the best we can. Um, and I would like to be vegan. I think that would be great, but I do still fall back to eating some meat once in a while, and so it's some fish, and that's working for me right now. And try to be, as careful about where I get my food from too. So,
I think that it is a lifelong journey because I too am on that. I've had a lot of history of GI issues over my life, and I realized that it's eliminated processed foods. That's made my life a lot better. And so I think it takes time though, because you can't give everything up at once
mhm,
because then you won't sustain it, right? And so last year or in 2024, I was really focused on giving up sugar. I do eat a lot of natural sugar in terms of fruits and vegetables and things like that, but it's amazing to me how sweet just fruit is, and that, you really don't need a lot of outside white because you can get so much sweetness from what is available to you from fruits.
mhm,
Even some vegetables are very, very sweet.
sure.
And so I do think that it's all connected. And I do feel like part of meditation is also um, being able to become one with your body and understanding how are you listening to your body, because your body is wise and is telling you things. But if you're not listening because of all the white noise around you, then you won't hear, the wisdom that you already know. And it's unfortunate that we block that kind of wisdom. So that's why I think, your passion for this area and connecting us to our own wisdom is so important, and such a unique thing and a unique way that you do that. What words of wisdom would you have for people who want to do something similar to you? It does seem like 200 hours and then 500 more hours, and a 2-year program for mindfulness. I mean, that's a lot of commitment. And I think it's also a different type of program where you're also clocking hours, practicing as well as teaching. And so, can you share any barriers that you overcame to get these things done for your own journey?
Uh, I think the hardest part was when my children were younger and just having the time to take the classes. Um, And honestly, I'm a lifelong learner. I love taking courses and I love learning new things and practicing them and then offering them out to my students. And so, if anything, right now, I don't have that much time to do all of that. I usually enroll in some sort of class that I'm interested in once a year. And so I would, and I used to feel so bad about it when I was younger, like, oh, this certain teacher was coming into town to do a yoga workshop, and it'd be like, I can't do it that weekend. I have other commitments with my family. And then I started to realize, you know what? These opportunities are always coming. They may look a little different. It might be a different teacher. It might be, so I'd say don't beat yourself up over trying to do it all and get it all in because we have to have balance in our lives. And that's if you're I guess maybe that's if you whatever you're pursuing, no matter what the area is. But I just remember that was sort of a barrier for me or and I think no matter what you're pursuing, it's really important to stay kind to yourself, to give yourself self-compassion on the process, on the journey. And really depending on what you want to do, take some time to maybe journal, sit quietly and notice what are you longing to do in your life? What do you love to do in your life? And sometimes, getting quiet, can help that. Or journaling can help that because sometimes it's just hard to know what is my passion for some of us.
Mhm. For
And
sure.
I think that quieting down, listening, or even just noticing, like for the longest time, I always loved to cook. And I did do that for a while, and I worked for a caterer. I also set up a little catering business with a friend before I had kids. And I just remember thinking, well, what do I love to do that comes so easily? And it was cooking. So I did that for a while. And then, you know, other things came into my life. But that's how sometimes we find our passion, and sometimes we don't even realize because we do it so easily that it is a passion. It's like, well, I used to think everybody can cook, everybody can set a beautiful table. And then people would come over and be like, how did you do all this? I'm like, really? Like I didn't honor my gifts, is what I'm saying. And also, it's those gifts that could become our passion in our life, depending on whatever it is.
I agree with you 100%. I also want to highlight some of the different programs that you've had that I participated in, that I think, and I hope to participate in the future. One of them is your women's circles. And so that is something that you do on a subscription based sort of model where you don't, it's a virtual experience. And I did experience that with a group of people that I was involved with, and I continue to be involved with. And that was a really unique experience. And so can you talk a little bit about that circle and the virtual nature of it, and how that appeals to certain people if you don't have the time or you're not locally available in the state of Illinois, which is where we're both located?
Yeah, when I first started, I did do it in person until COVID hit, and then I've been doing it virtually. And basically, the women's circles. Now, I've been in a women's circle myself for over 20 years with the same mentor and some of the same people. My women's circles are somewhat similar in that they're not drop-ins. I usually through some of my classes, I will notice somebody I can just tell is longing and wanting to have more of whatever we can do. And so I'll invite them into the circle. And then I let people know we do it once a month. We try to accommodate everybody's time and days. And it's not something you just drop in and out of. You have to have, it's important to have a commitment to it. And one of the most important things that I've learned from my circle with my mentor, is that we all need a place to be heard and to be seen. And also, we also learn to listen and speak mindfully, has been very valuable. And we're not there to fix each other because we're not broken. So it's a place to leave whatever you need to leave in the circle. We support each other, but not in a way where we're giving advice, because that's not what that's not what we're there for advice. And throughout the years, it's really helped me be able to come out and speak my truth about what I wanted to do. Like, oh, I want to start a yoga business, or I want to be out in the world doing meditation. Now that's something maybe I would be a little afraid to just tell my neighbor or a friend, but I know I could bring it to my women's circle and I would get the support I need. So it really helped me, and I had encouragement and support through so many things that I've done. And or even when things were in a really bad place, being supported and held. So there's so many different aspects of a women's circle. And you can do drop-in women's circles. Those are great too. I just choose to do one where it's the same people meeting, and then we bring somebody new on whenever I feel like I have met somebody that's ready for that.
hmm The other thing that you do that I think is really fascinating, and I hope to do it with you in the next 5 years. That's my goal. Is your trips to another country to do yoga and some of this work.
Mhm.
And I know you went to Italy in the fall. I hope that trip took place anyway. Can you speak a little bit about that and how often you do that? Any plans that you might have for future trips?
Yeah, so for Italy, I had planned that probably starting last winter, and I do it with a group that has locations and dates and things already set up for us. So that's really nice, and that's been a really lifelong dream of mine. When I got my yoga certification, I was kind of doing a whiteboard with my husband about all the things I love. And one was, it was yoga, food, travel. And I wasn't in a position to do all that then with my kids. This has really been a lifelong dream. And we brought 17 people plus myself and another teacher, and excellent food, all locally sourced. They would accommodate any diet, and we had a beautiful space. We had the place to ourselves. So it really gave people an opportunity to come inward, to rest into a time to be with yourself. And then we also did some excursions. So we got to see some beautiful cities in Italy. So it was a really, really nice mix. And like I said, it's been a dream of mine. And I think it's a great way to immerse. It's not like a yoga boot camp or meditation boot camp, but you're starting each day with meditation and yoga. And then we might do more of that throughout the day, depending on what our, plans are. We might be doing, walking meditation or hiking, or like I said, going to these different places, different excursions to see some beautiful places. But I love the immersion factor of it. And I love that it involves good food, teachings, all of that. I am looking, we haven't put the class out yet, but we are thinking of doing Ireland in September. And that would be another week tour. And that would involve same thing, meditation, yoga. They've got a beautiful excursion set up. It's a long day, but we go to some really beautiful, mostly all natural places on the coast there. And so I'm just getting a few more questions answered and getting a few things tied down, and hope to do that next in the fall. And I'd also like to do some local silent weekends. Like I think you, not I think, you did participate in a one day, maybe doing it. I used to do overnights, and I wouldn't mind bringing that back. And that's wonderful because you come at like 9 in the morning and then you leave the next day at noon. And for the most part, we're in silence, I should say. And I know that sort of sets people off a little, but the whole time you're either meditating, guided meditation, walking meditation. I don't know if we did any journaling. And then we're doing eating, we're talking about eating meditation. And it really helps to go inward and stop the noise. And sometimes a lot of stuff comes up that's difficult, but then that opens the door to doing more work in that area. So I think it's really valuable to do these sort of mini silent retreats.
I was just thinking as you were speaking, to go to Ireland or Italy, I'm almost tempted to say, oh, I should invite all my friends and we could, do this together. And I'm wondering, how do you handle that question? Is it something that is makes the experience better, or might it take away from the experience if you're focused more on your friendships and sightseeing? Because I do find that when I do activities with my friends, I don't go inward. I
Mhm.
tend to be, I almost feel a need to be more social. And so I was just going back and forth in my mind of would that be a good thing or a bad thing? What do you have any advice about that?
I think it's really individual. We had people that brought friends, or people, one woman brought her daughter and her daughter brought her friend. Another woman well, two people came with their nieces. And then some people traveled on their own. And I think it really depends what you want from it. I mean, the nice part is, um, you are practicing yoga, you're practicing meditation, and depending on your relationship, you could say, "Oh, this afternoon I want to be really quiet. I'm going to go for a walk by myself." Or some people went on walks and they were in silence, and some were just out walking and talking. And some people want to have a really good friend with them to go see this beautiful part of the country or the world. So it really is individual. But what I did have people do is after dinner, once people went to bed, I said, we're in silence till after yoga the next day. So it wasn't that long, but it was overnight. You got up, there was some, light snacks, teas and coffees. And then we did yoga for an hour and we did meditation. And then when we went to breakfast, we broke silence. A lot of people were a little concerned about that because they haven't done it before, but then a lot of people loved it. It was just so nice to be, especially because we did have this whole villa to ourselves. So it was just us. And I said, obviously, if you go back to your room and you want to talk to your roommate, that's up to you. I'm just asking in the public places when we're all together to refrain and keep it in silence. So when you come into your meditation and yoga practice, you've already sort of turned inward. You're letting and when you wake up in the morning, that's actually the best time to meditate because your mind hasn't fully, gone into work mode or whatever, living mode. And so if we don't talk, we don't activate our mind as much. So it's nice to have just a little bit of silence that I we did on the trip. So to answer your question, it's really personal, however you feel. And some people won't travel by themselves, and that's fine. Um, yeah, we had all different kind on the trip.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. And so really it's about your own goals. And that's what I try to think to
Mhm.
myself is that you have to be true to what your purpose is and what it is that you want to do on that trip.
Yeah, and
Um,
can I add one more thing? Because we're in a place where we are gonna do excursions and that type of thing, it's not like, "Oh, we're gonna go to this beautiful resort," and they are available. It's not to say that I will never do one of these, but, like, say you're going to Bali or something like that where that's it. You are at that resort. It's, you have the water, you have the wonderful food, and you're doing yoga twice a day, meditating a couple times a day. You might want to just go to something like that by yourself or with a friend that wants to be very quiet with you. But going to Ireland, going to Italy, and the retreat itself, offers, sort of socializing in the sense that we are getting on a bus and we're going to, visit these beautiful places. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Depending on the type of retreat, might depend on if you bring your friends or not too.
yeah, it can be the best of both worlds
Mhm.
if you want to make it that way, or you might want to keep an idea of what the retreat really involves
Mhm.
if you are looking for less activity or more activity. Um, You've mentioned your kids and you did a lot of this while they were growing. How do you think that your choices and your direction, whether it's that catering cooking time or the yoga mindfulness, how has that impacted your kids, do you
Mhm.
think?
Uh, I think no matter what I do with my kids, I'm always, not always, but I try to be as much of an example of, you know, living life in a way that is, can bring them more joy, can bring them more awareness. It's not always about, for me, it's not like, I just want my kids to be happy. Well, I want my kids to be responsible. I want them to, be present in their lives. And I think seeing me do these things, seeing me, you know, um, they've heard different stories from some of the kids. Their parents have come to my classes or their moms, and then they've heard stories through them. Or this past retreat, I did a part of the trip. I did solo after the retreat. I went on my own for 8 or 10 days, and so they were really impressed by that and encouraged by that. I mean, my kids will travel and do anything by themselves or whatever, but I think it's it's a great opportunity to for me to, um, offer them things that we normally, wouldn't talk about. Like, I'll ask them for Christmas, we do what's called a writing, gifts, the gift of writing, and we have prompts, and we write letters to each other, and each person does a letter to each person. Like, how have you influenced me, or your courage this year caused me to what? There's all these different prompts, and they'll pick up on one and write it. And that's something that came up because I learned that in my own group, and they read them out loud to each other and, to all of us, I should say. And it's just something that we really cherish, like they, I love that time that we can come together and do that. I mean, of course, there's always the opening the presents, but, and just reminding them that, to really live from that place of the heart, not always the head, or your gut. I'm always trying to get them to be more intuitive, like listen to your gut. If your gut's telling you one thing, listen to that and be more conscious about what your body's telling you, and take some breaks during the day, and we even talked about how are we going to take care of ourselves after the election, like what's coming ahead. And we talked about my big thing is radical self-care. We have to take care of ourselves if we want to help others. Um, or even just to handle what news we're gonna, there's been so much news anyways. But so those are some things that I've done with my kids, and I've tried to be an example. And it's funny because they often will remind me, like, Mom, you shouldn't be looking at that on your phone, or remind me to be more mindful, in terms of something I might be doing, or I'm trying to do too many things at once. And it's like, you wouldn't want us doing that, so it comes back to me, which I love because I think I maybe did my job a little bit. And also, I can use the reminders. When it comes to my kids, I sort of sometimes lose my way in terms of my balance too, because I all of a sudden I'm like, oh, they're coming home. I've got to do this and that and this and that. And they're like, just do what you normally do. We'll manage. So
That's right. Our kids, at some point, the role reversal happens, and all of a sudden they're leading us, right?
yeah.
And that's a sign of our success in our launching and parenting of them. I'm wondering, as we sort of close this conversation out, I'd love to hear about where do you think this is going to continue taking you? Might it lead to something completely different, and you may pivot to a new spot?
Mm.
And what is the future for Lisa?
Yeah, that's interesting because sometimes I will sit back and go, oh, is there something else that I want to do? And I can't say I know that right now. I do feel like some of the training I'm doing is really about getting much deeper into working with people with meditation, helping them with their well-being. Um, and I think that can go really, not that it can go far, it can go really deep. And I'm looking forward to working more and more with my students that way and bringing in new students to help them. Um, you know, just working more embodied, working with inquiry. With this course, I just did a year-long course, and it's about embodiment, inquiry, investigating, and it's really, I think it holds a lot of tools to really help people go further. And so I'm looking forward to practicing that more and offering it out more to, as many people as I can. It's really more of a one-on-one type of practice. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that and being really open with teaching yoga. At first I was like, wow, I'm doing so many yoga privates. And I'm like, well, this is good. I, I always think, oh, my mindset was more meditation right now, but the yoga has really helped me in so many ways. And I think it's helping others. Yeah. So I think where I'm going to go is I want to be open to that too. So, I definitely want to do more travel, more adventure, bring people places. So, but to be open to that spark, like I talked about earlier, like what am I longing for? What am I doing these days that really I can't wait to get back to it and do it more, to pay attention to all of that. So, because who knows what will evolve from that.
It sounds like, the longing is to go deeper with your clients and help with this embodiment training that you've done and things like that. It seems like there might be a cross path of maybe yoga and like life coaching or
Mm,
something that brings those two skill sets together. Because if there are blocks or if there are things that you're finding that could be something that, marries those two things together. Anything else that you want to talk about in terms of your passion and your purpose and where where you hope that you've impacted
mm.
the world and the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Well, when I started doing this, like I said, I wanted to plant the seed. And so I feel like, um, that's sort of my legacy right now anyways, is to keep planting that seed and to keep doing in any type of culture, whatever, situation, whether it's corporate or if it's community. Like I just had a group or one person reach out to me to do a podcast on self-care using meditation, and it's for tax accountants because they get so stressed during tax season. I'm like, okay, here's another group I haven't worked with. So I think my legacy is to just keep being open and offering, taking in um, taking in as much as I can take in terms of my learning, my education, and keep giving that out and hope that, like I said, planting the seed and wherever it's going to grow, it grows and trust that process.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity to highlight your website and any programs that you might be might be coming up soon, so that our listeners know everything that you're offering. And so, can you share how they can get a hold of you, where they can find your curriculum and things like that?
Yes, you can go to my website. My email is on there and reach out to me that way. I'm doing Monday night meditation drop-in classes at just 30 minutes, and we meet on Zoom with no cameras, so come however you like. We do a quick check-in and then a 25-minute meditation, and then everybody goes on their way. It kind of sets the week up for you. I also teach with another group these are things you can email me about. I teach Monday and Tuesdays with a group that actually meets 5 days a week. I'm one of the teachers, and we have meditation every morning at 10 o'clock to 10:30. And I teach 2 of those days, sometimes 3. Um, I continue to, um, work on classes like last year, and I'm not sure I might repeat it this year. I did a course on mindfulness, self-compassion, a group course through the yoga center. That will show up on my website when I decide on the dates. I'm also thinking of doing a course on mindful parenting, which Joji, you kind of got me started on that with the other discussion we had, and also just been working on that. I just think it's such an important part of for people to have some more skills in, because it's really not an easy thing to do to be a parent. Um, and then just keep an eye, as far as the silent retreats, the other retreats, the Ireland retreat, I will post it on my website as soon as it's a go. So I would say go to my retreat. I mean, go to my, I would say that too, but go to my website and just take a look for my email, and then reach out to me on whatever you'd be interested. If you're interested in the half-hour programs, let me know. If you're interested in the women's circle, we could have a discussion about that. I can go into a little more detail and talk about, if you'd like to join, if it's a good fit for you. I'd love to have people reach out to me around that as well. So those are some of the things that I'm working on and that I hope you'll join me in.
So I want to thank you so much, Lisa, for taking time out to meet with me and share your passion. And really, my goal of doing this podcast is to show people that um, your passion can be anything that gives you joy.
Mhm.
And once you know how you want to deliver that, you can do it. And so thank you so much for this time and sharing your story with us and all the offerings that you give to people, both virtually and in person, and even internationally. It's
Wonderful.
fantastic.
Well, thank
And
you, Joji. I just want to, I love the topic, as you know, and I think passion is a great thing to explore and to talk about. So thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this work. It's really important work.
I appreciate it. I think that life without passion is seeing life in black and white. And so I
Mhm.
think more of us need to know how to find our passion and to be able to live every day. And I also believe there's a huge tie to passion, living with passion and longevity.
Yeah,
And that's what's going to sustain us and keep
yeah.
us healthy and moving. And so it all comes together for me in that way.